All right. Welcome to part 3 of the masterclass. I am so happy. I'm about to tell you what this is. My black book. I got my brain here to show you exactly where everything works in the brain and how it all comes together. So today's part 3. In the previous 2 parts, the first part, we talked about the prefrontal cortex. We talked about the general mechanism of brain rewiring. If you're stuck, if you're blocked, what to do to change that. In part 2, we talked about money. How to create wealth, how to rewire your brain so you attract money. And I took you through the whole journey of where I started, where I was broke, thousands of dollars in credit card debt, and how I retired my parents and got my dream life and traveled the world. But today is a very, very important one, because every guy, including me when I first started, I wanted the girl of my dreams, my soulmate. And look, I started in a very, very stuck environment, right? Today I'm going to tell you all about it. I'm going to tell you about my childhood brainwashing, where I was in my life. I was a 31-year-old virgin. What happened when I moved to Vegas? How I met this sex expert, this sex master who taught me about deep connection. Like this entire journey of my life. How I started off as a nice guy, as this pushover, this real pussy, and what I became today. And I'll tell you about this very soon, but this is my black book. I've written a lot of stuff down in here. I'll tell you how this started today. But today's brain rewiring masterclass is all about relationships. It's about dating hot girls. You know, what happened in Vegas with me? How did I rewire my brain to go from someone who couldn't even talk to a single pretty girl to becoming a pickup instructor and dating lots of supermodels, traveling the world, being an instructor for a dating company? How did all of that happen? How did I rewire my brain? And look, you're going to be at a certain point in your life. You might be the type of person who's already married, right? You may have kids. And this masterclass is not only for those guys who are single and who are trying to get a wife, it is also for those who already have a wife. And what to do to rewire that relationship, what to do in your brain, and exactly the part of the brain that we're interested in today. In part 1 and part 2, we talked about different areas of the brain. It was more cortical, more cortex related. But without this part of the brain, nothing happens. Like literally nothing. Because this right here, by the way, if you look at the brain, this is how it looks, right? We got the prefrontal cortex here. We got the visual system here in the back. We got the cerebellum, which is the coordination center. Right? We got all sorts of stuff. The hearing happens here in the temporal lobe, right? We got the amygdala, for fear. We got the hippocampus in the back, right? All of these areas. But there's one area right here in the brain stem, right? As I'm showing you here. It's hard for you to see it in this brain because I'm showing you this on a superficial layers of the brain. Here is where the real structure lies, here deep in the brain. So let me tell you a little bit about this structure so you get an idea of what's going on. Okay. As a society, we are always thinking of, we are always planning the next move, right? We're always trying to do things. We're trying to solve problems. All of that happens in the cortex, right? Right here, in the prefrontal cortex especially. Right, for humans. This is the area of the brain that is very special to human beings. But there is the polar opposite area that is even more important for human beings, and that is right here. Now, why is this area important, and what is this here, right? What is this known as? This right here is the brain stem, okay? The reason this is so important is because it is the oldest area of the brain. So if you think of evolution, the most evolutionarily preserved area, which goes back 500 million years, is the brainstem. And just a couple of hundred years ago, or even 150 years ago, neuroanatomists and neurophysiologists literally disregarded this area. This area is not even discussed in the books, right? They thought that this is simply a relay from the brain to the body and from the body back to the brain. It's located right here. And so it was disregarded that, oh, this thing is not important. It's simply a passage. It's simply a gateway to the brain and then to the body, right? Something like a connection. But that was proven completely wrong because the brainstem right here, it literally controls the sensory information that gets into your brain. Okay, so I'm going to give you some terminology here to get started. This thing is known as the brainstem. And in today's masterclass, I will tell you exactly what area inside the brainstem, this right here, is responsible for all your bad wiring. Whatever blocks you're experiencing, and I'm going to tell you about my whole story, the blocks that I experienced were, I couldn't talk to a pretty girl. I couldn't talk to any girl. I did not kiss a girl until my early 30s. I was a nice guy. I did not know how to stand up for myself. I was very much blocked. There was all this rigidity in me. And because I was getting good grades and I was making my parents proud, I didn't really have to evolve through that validation, right? That validation was so strong, it was keeping me alive. And this area in the brainstem that we're going to talk about today, it's such an important area. This is what it's called. It's called the reticular activating system. Okay? And I'm going to tell you about the government studies that have been done. There's a lot of literature on the reticular activating system that is being done by those agencies like DARPA and Department of Defense and MIT. Really, really cool stuff. And I'm also going to tell you today how I discovered this information. Because a lot of people, they go to PubMed, they read neuroscience articles, and they think that's all there is. But that's not true. There's hidden archives of the government of what research they're doing, because I was funded by the government during my PhD. I had a fellowship from them, so I knew all this stuff. So really, really cool. So dating hot girls, you're gonna learn how to have amazing sex. And look, when I first started, all I cared about was having sex. But I was in trouble because at a certain point, my brain was wired to only get hard with porn. So I'm going to tell you about all of that too, how I overcame porn addiction. And it's an entire journey of how I met the different experts, what I wrote inside my black book that I have here. I brought it with me today for you guys. By the way, I've had this for 12 years. All the cool stuff that I learned from all my mentors that were experts and actually knew what they were doing, everything is written inside this black book. And I'm going to tell you some of those stories here today. So this is Brain Rewiring Masterclass Part 3. Again, you can watch this on its own, but I prefer you go watch Part 1 and then Part 2 and then come to this, and everything will make sense. Okay? Because over these parts, I'm showing you how I rewired my entire brain and how I rewired different areas of the brain. Exactly the techniques that I used from my PhD in neuroscience and from all the experts I learned. Literally, this is 12 years in the making, okay? This masterclass is for men. My strategy, my motivation, my service has always been towards men. However, if you're a woman watching this, you will get value from this. You will get a lot of value because today I am teaching you how to rewire your reticular activating system. Once you rewire that, and once you learn how to remove those blocks and how to clean out this virus-infected brain that you have, how to clean that out. And I'll get to the virus soon and how it works in the brain and what's happened in your brain. Once you learn that, you can literally achieve any goal. It's not just to date hot girls and have amazing sex. I'm going to talk about that today because I use this hack to accomplish this goal, but you can accomplish any goal. That's why these master classes are so valuable, because I'm teaching you how to think. I'm teaching you how to rewire so those brain connections become unlocked. And once the switch is on, you can do anything you like, okay? So today, this is what you're going to learn. Okay, I've written down the entire big steps of what we're going to learn today. And of course, you're going to learn way more than this, but these are some highlights which I wanted to cover. Approach anyone, anytime, anywhere. This was one of my big goals in life, because when I first started, I would see hot girls, right? This was in my high school. I remember in my high school, there was this one girl, tall, white girl, really pretty, brunette. I would sit in the back of the class. You know, I was this shy person, very introverted. And she would like turn around and look at me and like, you know, give me smiles and like the other girls would be giggling. And I wanted to approach this girl, right? I wanted to at least get to know this girl. And this is like back in junior high, okay? Back in Texas. But I never approached her. And all of these blocks that I had as a kid, all that brainwashing that happened, and I'll talk about all the brainwashing and what specific ways I was brainwashed and how by being completely indoctrinated into a certain culture, how I got out of that. And it was epic stuff. And it was all done through brain rewiring, right? The area that I just talked about, the reticular activating system, one thing that it is involved in is fight or flight. Right? You know this response, fight or flight, the sympathetic nervous system as they call it. They just don't ever tell you what part of the brain this sympathetic nervous system is. And that is, but brainstem is a big part of that, including the reticular activating system, the RAS. Okay, so I'll refer to it as the RAS as well. Right? So fight or flight. In my case, whenever I would see a pretty girl, I definitely wouldn't fight her. I would get the hell out. I would run my ass out of there. Either physically or mentally, I would just clear that out of my memory, clear that out of my reticular activating system. It never appeared to me, right? And it became even crazier in Montreal when I had all these crazy hot girls during my PhD. Even in my 20s and in my early 30s, I saw all these hot girls. They were around me, but they never entered my brain because I was so blocked. And this is usually what happens in us, right? The reticular activating system is so strong because it's so old, right? It's filtering information that is valuable for your survival. So if you believe that this hot girl is going to somehow be my enemy or somehow be detrimental to my survival, of course you're going to run away. So that's something that you need to remember. Destroy all limiting beliefs, right? Fuck being nice. One problem that I've always had until I figured this out and rewired my brain is I was a nice guy. I was known as the model kid, right? All the different parents, like in our Jamaat Khana, in our like mosque, you know, in our religious center, they would want their kids to be like me. You know, I would be the person who like memorized the prayers, right? I was this nice guy. I never stood up for myself. I was introverted. I was shy. And it was to such an extent that I still remember in my first year of university, I was taking this class of physical education, right? PE class. And I was working out and I thought, wow, if I work out and build an amazing body and get jacked, and then I'm able to get girls, do I want those girls? I don't want those girls. I want a girl to like me for my skinny fat, right? My my bad health. I want the girl to like me because I eat Taco Bell every day, which I used to. And so I was that type of nice guy. I didn't even understand that this body is a part of me. It is me, right? I am this body. I didn't even understand that. I thought the body was like away from me. And I'll talk about what happened with my penis soon. And the fear that I had of my penis. This is like really interesting stuff. So fuck being nice, right? If you have limiting beliefs with women, you think that you're ugly, which I used to think as well. If you think that you're not in the right country, you don't have good photos, you don't know what to say to a girl, you don't know what pickup line to use. Even if you go on a date, you don't know how to get a second date, or you get dates, but you're never able to have sex with the girl. Even if you have sex, you're never able to keep the girl because the sex is not good, or there's not a deep connection, not a deep relationship. Whatever those problems are, a lot of that stems from your limiting beliefs. Okay, so we're gonna kick that out. The one hidden secret of great sex, and this is a shocking revelation. I never knew this because over my life, when I met the sex expert, and this is a Ukraine story, which I'll tell you soon, he's the one who opened my mind about this one amazing hack to great sex. It's unbelievable. It is nothing like what you could have imagined, right? So I'm going to give you that hack as well. We're going to rewire your arousal circuit for a happy marriage. And for those of you who are already married or about to get married or very recently married, this is going to be huge because I had to come from a mindset of picking up a lot of girls and dating a lot of girls and having a lot of sex to leaving that behind and enter a deep, connected, loving relationship with my wife. That's not easy, but I did it through the technique I'm going to teach you today. It's a brilliant thing. It's a big, big secret. In fact, it's the biggest discovery that neuroscience has ever made. And I'm going to tell you that today, which not many people know. You're going to be able to make dopamine your bitch because willpower is bullshit. If you try to will yourself to do something, you can't because the reticular activating system in the brainstem, it won't let it enter. Like those girls weren't entering my cortex when I was in Montreal. Do you understand? Like when the girls were writing me love letters in high school, and I'll talk about that too, that stuff wasn't entering my brain. The reticular activating system wasn't letting it enter, right? This area of the brain, I'll tell you all the cool functions of this area. It's unbelievable what it can do. But we're gonna make dopamine your bitch because right now, most men are dopamine's bitch, all right? Awaken the RAS to attract love, dark side integration. This is huge. If you're a nice guy and you have these like, what they used to call me, bhola bhala tendencies, then we're gonna rewire that area of the brain as well, which is the RAS, because you can't attract love unless you love yourself. Like that's a fact, man. And I know I've been in enough relationships to know that. I've been in a lot of toxic relationships and it was because I did not love myself. And so we're gonna learn what the dark side is, how to integrate that, how I integrated it, and it's brilliant, brilliant stuff. It's all brain rewiring. And of course, create your perfect relationship, right? This is where it's not a relationship you get. You don't get a wife. You don't get a relationship. You don't get a connection. You create it. And creating the connection, that journey, those downloads that you're going to receive very soon, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. And once you remove those blocks and you're able to be creative, you can accomplish anything you want. And I am living proof of that. All my one-on-one coaching clients that I've been coaching over many years, they're proof of that. Okay? So now let's go back. Now let's have a little fun. What was happening to my reticular activating system and the story when I was a 31-year-old virgin. Man, I still remember how I lost my virginity. I'll tell you that story. It's fucking hilarious. So every one of us has an RAS childhood wiring. Okay, so as I'm doing this masterclass with you, try to understand, and by the way, write all this down. Look, I'm very lucky because in my black book, I've been writing for 12 years. Okay, this has all the secrets. So you need to start writing. You remember in part 1 and part 2, I mentioned the black book. A lot of people were saying, hey, can you show us your black book? And here it is. But you need to keep a black book too and learn all of this stuff and write everything down that I'm telling you. So as I'm doing this masterclass, you need to think, what is the childhood wiring that is blocking your success? What do you think that is? Just jot that down, and we're going to determine if this is true or not today in this masterclass. So there's unconscious and conscious. The cool thing, by the way, the reticular activating system, as I told you, you can't really see it from here. I keep pointing. It's inside the brainstem, right? So you have to open up the brainstem, and it's right here. Right? This is the reticular activating system. It's a bunch of neurons and fibers that come from the body, they come from the senses, and they go to the cortex and other areas of the brain. In fact, the reticular activating system connects to the reticular activating system connects to every single area of the brain. That's all you need to know. This is the unconscious part of the brain, right? However, it's both. Most areas of the brain are either conscious or unconscious, right? If you look at, for example, the prefrontal cortex, I talked about that in part 1 and part 2 and how to rewire it. That's a conscious part of the brain. When you are in awareness, your cortex is activated, right? Even when you're sleeping and you're in the REM cycle of sleep, when your eyes are moving rapidly, right? Rapid eye movement, REM, your cortex is activated. Now, the thing about the reticular activating system is that it is both unconscious and conscious, right? So how does that work? I'll tell you about the function soon. But before I tell, this is a big thing, right? It's unconscious and conscious. So remember that, right? There's only one area of the brain that is conscious and unconscious. And the reason we're going to rewire this area today is because it will allow you to take what you need from the environment and give to the cortex what's important to your goals. Okay? So it's unconscious because it's involuntary, things are just happening, but it's also conscious because it is making you aware by feeding those things to the cortex. Okay? This will become clearer and clearer as I go forward. But as you're thinking about your childhood wiring, let me tell you mine. Girls are evil. Okay? I remember this one moment, I got a love letter I got a few love letters, but one of the love letters I remember from this girl. This was a girl that other guys wanted. I was quite young. I was a teenager. And this girl wrote me this long 2-page love letter. And as I was reading it, the teacher came in and took the love letter from me and read the love letter. And she goes, Farhan, are you ready for this? Are you ready for a relationship? And I had no answer. I had no idea. I was just trying to get good grades, right? My number one goal in life was get A+. When I was born in Pakistan, my mom still tells me this, and I have all the certificates. I was the topper, right? I'm going to tell you what the topper is soon, but I was the best student in every grade, in every subject, math, science, like English. I loved English. Even back in Pakistan, I really loved English. It was my favorite subject. And so my goal was to get A+, right? 100 out of 100. And I kept doing it. I kept feeling really, really good. So my RAS wiring in childhood was good for my survival, right? Don't have relationship. Girls are evil. This is good. Because if girls are evil, and I believe that girls are evil, then the reticular activating system will not let in any sexual desire. It will not let in the beauty of women. It just won't happen, right? Sex is bad. And what I mean by that is sex is sin, right? the religion I was brought up in, not necessarily consciously and like an indoctrination type thing, but in an unconscious way, I was wired to believe that sex, especially before marriage, is a sin, right? Premarital sex is prohibited. And I know this happens in Christianity and in other religions as well, but I was brought up a Muslim. So that is what we were taught, right? That this is what I fully believed, that sex is a sin. Don't have sex. Stay away from girls, stay away from sex, right? And this girls are evil. I did not go to prom, right? I didn't even think of prom. There was not even a question of going to prom. Like, there is zero chance, okay? And I talked about the love letters already. Sex is bad, right? Penis play. So, this is very interesting because when I was a kid, when I was a baby, I asked my mom this just a few days ago, in fact. When I was a baby, because my dad is a doctor, he was smart in biology and physiology and even like sexual stuff. He's very smart. So I would play with my dick as a baby. When I was born, I was 1 or 2 years old, I would be just like playing with my dick. And my mom said that before they would put on a diaper, like, they would do a diaper change, they would let me play with my dick as much as I feel. And then they would put on a diaper. They did not shame me. They did not hit my penis and say, hey, stop, shame on you. Don't touch your dick. This is bad. None of that. Because my dad was so smart, scientifically, he let me touch my penis. And so that wiring very, very early on was fine. But then later on in life, when I got into, getting the best grades, stay away from girls, when I learned about religion, I read a lot about religion. I read a lot of religious books. I was going to our religious center every single day. I was also the top kid in our religious classes. I was memorizing all that stuff, all the prayers. And so I grew a fear of touching my penis, right? So when I would watch porn, and back in the day in Dallas, when I was growing up, there was no like Pornhub. But what we did have are I had these Dallas Cowboys cheerleading calendars somehow in the house. My mom probably got it for free or something from some gift. So I had this calendar and I would look at those cheerleaders and I was afraid to touch my penis because of the subconscious programming. And the reticular activating system just wouldn't let that thought come of like, I can touch my penis, right? That movement was prohibited in my brain. I was blocked. So rather than masturbating, and like normally like a man would do, I would look at the biggest tittied cheerleader in that Dallas Cowboys calendar, and I would just roll around on my stomach like that, right? Like roly, roly, roly. So my dick would also get stimulated, and then I would come. That happened year after year after year. And thank God that didn't lead to some long-term trauma, because I was even doing that in the bathtub, with like the concrete bathtub back in Texas. I was doing that. I would like imagine, I would bring the calendar with me in the bathroom. I would look at the biggest tittied girl. They were wearing a cheerleading outfit. It was super sexy. I would just roll around and stimulate my dick, and I would come like that. And then of course, the sex is bad, girls are evil, eventually led me towards watching porn around the age of 12. And I was addicted to porn for almost 30 years. It's unbelievable. And that caused porn-induced erectile dysfunction. I'm going to talk about these details soon and how it works in the brain. So I started watching porn. And even when I was a kid, when my friends would like bring, the Playboy and the Penthouse, like the big covers and stuff, like the long, the whatever it's called, like the fold. I wanted to see it, but I would pretend that I don't want to see it. So my friends don't think I'm like a bad person, right? I wanted to stay the nice guy, at least in my own head. I wanted to pretend that I'm this nice guy. And I was not even close to being in touch with my dark side. And that really, really hurt me back in the day. So you have this issue with porn, and then that just got worse and worse and eventually ended up in erectile dysfunction. Let me tell you about how bad it was as a kid, right? Stay away from infidels. So one thing that may or may not pertain to you is that I was sort of guided and motivated to stay within our religious community, right? We belong to a very specific part of Islam. We're a very specific group of Muslims. And we lived around that community in Dallas, right? We went to the prayer hall every day and prayed every day, multiple times a day, especially like in the morning, at night, did meditation, all that stuff. And the subconscious programming I had, again, the reticular activating system, was that don't hang out with white people. Only hang out with your religious community. And not even with other Muslims, right? Like they're like the others, right? They don't believe in what we believe in. They're different types of people. So I was very early programmed that white people, other religions, other cultures are inferior to me. Nobody really said that, but usually you don't have to say it, right? If you're indoctrinated into a certain belief system as a kid, then you don't necessarily have to be said that like word for word. It's not something literal. It's something that gets programmed very deeply in the subconscious mind. And then so I was not allowed to go camping. So there was, the different camps were happening. My friends were going. I didn't go to a single camp. And even, this is interesting. So the high school team that we had, obviously we had a football team. So there was football games and there was pep rallies with all the cheerleaders. And I shit you not, I was so against this stuff that all of this stuff is my enemy. And all I need to do is work on my grades. I'm the best student. All of these people are losers. That when there was a pep rally in the auditorium and everybody was there in the auditorium, I stayed in the corridor with my notes or the exam that I was going to have, those questions and books and stuff. And I was reading that and taking those notes in the corridor. I didn't even enter the auditorium to be in the pep rally. I was like, this is stupid. Pep rally? Give me a break. This is stupid. Like, I'm way better than these people. So this is the type of programming I had. And the reason I'm telling you how, like, the deep stuff, because no matter what your programming is, mine was worse, trust me, right? So I come from this programming, right? So now, I showed you how to see the RAS, inside the brainstem. I already showed you that. It's right here. And what the hell is the RAS, right? The reticular activating system, right here, as I was telling you, right? Right here in the brain, right here. What the hell is it? Well, it controls a lot of things. One thing that it controls is the sleep-wake cycles, right? Think of the reticular activating system as a controller of everything. It controls, right? It controls, like the cortex is allowing you to plan things, execute things, think things through, inhibit a lot of structure so you stay, you stay alive, right? That's what the cortex is doing, right? The cortex, especially the prefrontal cortex. But the brainstem is doing the involuntary stuff, things you can't really, like, you fall asleep, right? You go into bed and you fall asleep. Then in the morning, somehow you wake up, right? It just automatically happens. Same thing for heart rate, right? Just the reticular activating system is controlling heart rate. Signal versus noise. This is huge, right? In today's society, and I'll talk about that in a future masterclass I'm preparing right now. In today's society, we completely miss signal from noise. Dude, there is so much noise right now in the world. There is so much noise trying to keep you busy, trying to hijack your reticular activating system, that unless you're aware and unless you're able to categorize signal from noise, you will be tempted and you will be attacked and you won't be able to get out of it. But today I'm going to show you how to rewire this. Also, you can think of the reticular activating system as a filter, right? You know how you have like a shower filter or water filter, it sort of filters out all the dirt, right? The filter keeps in all the dirt, all the garbage, the fluoride and all that stuff, right? And it lets in the pure water, the clean water is let in. And that is another goal of the reticular activating system, right? And of course, if you're alive or dead, this is a technique that was discovered by Harvard and other parts of the scientific community. And that is when the reticular activating system dies, right? Let's say there's a lesion. There's some suppression, there's some inhibition, there's some trauma to even a small part of the reticular activating system, even a few millimeters of the reticular activating system, you can go in a coma or you can die. This is the only area of the brain where if it is damaged, you are permanently dead, permanently unconscious. You can't get it back. Okay, and thank God that you're conscious right now, you're watching this video, so you're not that out there, right? You're not that much blocked. You have a lot of hope, a lot of hope, right? Another way you want to think about this is in terms of a virus, right? Think of it like, when your computer gets a virus, let's say a file is infected in your computer, there's some malware, and I'm going to tell you about a really cool term which relates to malware, right? When you get malware in your computer, some file that comes in which is a virus, it infects a part of your computer. Now, if it infects an important part of your computer, like let's say it hacks your password or your Apple ID or something important, your bank account information, that's a big problem. That's going to affect your entire life, right? The reticular activating system is like that. This virus that you have in your brain, that I used to have in my brain, it's literally like a virus because it goes in and it doesn't allow other things to enter. Sometimes my dad just told me about this virus he found where it takes over your computer and you're unable to move the mouse. You're unable to type something and there's like sirens going on, like something crazy is happening and you're like in trouble and they're like, call this number. Of course it's a fraud, right? It's a hack. It's a scam. But this is happening to your brain. It happened to my brain. And the only way that you can rewire, that you can literally download the information that you need to automatically attract the perfect wife, automatically attract your dream relationship, is first you remove this virus that's inside you. You make your system clean, and then you can just automatically download stuff. And this is exactly what I did here, right? In my journey that I'm telling you today, the entire rewiring journey, that's what I did. And it's such an easy thing. Like it doesn't have to take you years or even months. Like this is quite an easy thing to do once you understand the neuroscience. And that's what I'm teaching you today, right? So this virus slowly taking over, right? You won't feel it until you're there, right? And now let's discuss some terms that are going to help us for the rest of the masterclass. Is super important stuff, right? There's two terms, good wiring and bad wiring, right? And this is, of course, I'm talking about the RAS, how it works. And the good wiring, of course, is going to keep you happy and fresh and loving and productive and focused. And the bad wiring is a virus that is laughing at you and it is infecting your brain in the reticular activating system. And let me tell you what these two terms are. And I referred to this already in the previous two masterclasses, so we're going to review that. It's called Enriched. Okay? The enriched state. When the reticular activating system is in an enriched state, think of it like rich, right? You're rich. You're rich not just with money, but you're rich with relationships. You're rich with health. You're rich with vitality. You're rich with connection. You're rich with confidence, right? That is the enriched state of your reticular activating system. Oh. Sorry about that. That is the enriched state of the reticular activating system. And in the previous masterclass, I talked about enrichment, right? Enrichment, when your brain wiring is in an enrichment state, then you are able to do things faster, learn faster, have better memory, make the right decisions, never be confused. Now, the opposite of that is called maladaptive. Okay, so remember this as well. Bad wiring is known as maladaptive, and I'll show you soon how I discovered this stuff in the government literature. The CIA, the Department of Defense, they've been studying this stuff, since the 60s, right? The first paper that discussed enrichment was in the early 60s, 1960s. And it's some badass stuff, right? So you have maladaptive is the bad wiring, right? And again, this is the RAS. So in my life, how did good wiring convert into bad? And this is very important to understand because the RAS is very plastic. It can change, right? It's malleable. The connections, the inner connections of the RAS can change. All the different areas there can get unlocked through the proper techniques, which I'm teaching you today. So, in my life, I used to be a topper, right? Best grade in the class. So that was good wiring because it allowed me to be the best. So that's good, right? That's enriched. My brain was in an enriched state. Now that same wiring kept continuing. Get the best grade, get the best grade, get the best grade. Only straight A's, led to me being a virgin. At the age of 31, I was a virgin, and I had porn-induced erectile dysfunction, right? There was a moment in my life where I could not get hard to porn. And now you switch back to today, I haven't seen porn in years. And I mean, not even something that resembles porn. In 2021, February, I still remember this, when I fully rewired my RAS, since that time till today, I haven't even done an ounce of anything that resembles porn. And I'm saying like none of it. OnlyFans, webcam, Instagram models, TikTok girls dancing, like none of that. I don't even imagine porn. I don't need to. I'm in a loving, happy, connected relationship now. And I have been for the last 4 years. And I made this promise to myself in February 2021, even before I was married. And I've kept that promise and I'm going to keep it for life. The model good boy, this was enriched, right? I was getting validation from my relatives. I was a top student. My teachers loved me. I would get these certificates first in the class. I would get the trophies from school. Back in Pakistan, what they do is they line you up and they call this sort of a ceremony at the end of each half a year, so twice a year, and they line everyone up in the class, and there's the first grade here, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, and what they'll do is they'll call the 10th rank to the first rank. So people come in and then everyone else didn't get ranked from 1 to 10, and so everybody knew I was going to be first. Right? So, and I also knew. So I was like, okay, 10th, okay, it's this guy, 9th is this guy, blah, blah, blah. And then, okay, 2nd is this guy, okay, it's fine. And then I would be first, right? So this is great. This is an enriched environment. It's very loving. But then if you keep doing that, and you do that only, and the brain gets really, really good at it, right? The RAS only lets in the good grades and the model good boy, you become a pussy. And rewiring that keeping all my academic stuff and still staying intelligent, but letting go of like, I need to get straight A's and I need to be perfect and I need to be OCD. Getting rid of that was a great achievement as well. I'll show you how I did that. Proud parents to bully parents. My parents were always proud of me, right? My dad, at a certain point, he couldn't help me with my homework because it became too hard. My mom helped me with my homework at the very beginning. So they were very good parents. They were amazing parents, right? They were proud of me. But at a certain point, when I kept listening to what they were saying and I just kept believing them like gospel, they would tell me how to do this, and they weren't even good at this stuff they were telling me how to do. And they sort of became bullies. I remember when I went to Vegas and I called my mom, and they saw I was making YouTube videos and I was saying fuck, and I was like being a bit obnoxious and a bit aggressive. And their friends started telling them, hey, what the fuck is Farhan doing? What the hell, right? Tell him to get his act together. They became bullies. My mom told me, don't ever call us back. We don't want you as our son anymore. Literally, I was told that when I was in Vegas. I'll get to the Vegas story soon too. And I was religious as fuck, man. And I'm telling you, dude, like every single day I would be in the prayer hall. I would be the first one to enter. I would get there before everyone else. I would stay late. I would pray. I would vacuum it. I was a volunteer, so I would like serve food. I would be like in like a hall monitor and like crowd control. I did all of that, right? And then it was like religion got away from everything else. It was just very, very religious. And that became so toxic that eventually I became an atheist. I remember there was moments in my life where I never even thought about God or religion or faith. And I made fun of those people who were religious. I made fun of those people who believed in God. Oh my God, these people are losers. And I was an alcoholic plus. So doing drugs, drinking alcohol, sometimes multiple drugs at the same time. So that religious extremism, that wiring eventually led me to become an atheist and an alcoholic because I overdid it, right? So an enriched state in your reticular activating system can very easily become maladaptive if you are unable to control it. And I was unable to control it, right? And at this moment of my life, right? This moment, this is basically during my PhD, right? I'm in my late 20s, early 30s that time. I thought I was stuck, and I literally thought that my life was over. Because it's like, if I am so smart, and if I'm so smart, and I'm this expert in neuroscience, and I know all this shit, why the hell do I have pretty huge depression? Like, it doesn't make sense, right? Because if you work hard and you get good grades and you get these high degrees and you're better than everyone else in academics, why are we still depressed? Like, that's what I thought. And it wasn't just me. I had friends, colleagues who were doing their PhD with me who were all depressed. They all looked depressed. They were all introverted, all shy, right? All losers and not healthy, right? So this is academia devil here, right? So I started thinking of academia. I was like, okay, what is academia? What are these professors up to? And I started understanding how evil this entire system is. And I don't mean like the professors wake up trying to destroy students' lives. Because the professor's reticular activating system is letting in certain things and not letting in other things. Their awareness is how they were brought up. It's their childhood wiring, right? So I looked at my professors and I was like, okay, what the hell is going on, right? And I was like, as I progressed towards my PhD, especially the last 1 to 2 years, I looked at my professors and I thought, okay, these guys are hardcore neuroscientists. I had a Harvard professor. My main supervisor was a Harvard professor, from Harvard. My main mentor was a Nobel Prize winner, Dr. David Hubel. He won the Nobel Prize in physiology and medicine. And these guys did not have a hot wife, right? No offense, man. If you're watching this, I'm sorry, but like they didn't have hot wives. They weren't having amazing sex. At least it didn't look like it, at least, right? They didn't look happy, because later on, when I studied with the sex masters and the pickup guys, like they had hot girls. And I'll tell you those stories. It's very, very interesting what happened in Vegas and all the debauchery that happened and the degeneracy. But my professors, like, they weren't living the sexually free, the confidence with women life that I wanted to live. And it was interesting, like these guys are experts in the brain, and we know everything starts in the brain. Everything. It all starts in the brain. So what are they missing? And I'll tell you about about how I discovered all this. I thought, look, my professors are funded by the government. I was funded by the government. So what if it's the government that has the answers? It's not the professors. So that's when I started digging into MIT and how the MIT was working with the Department of Defense and DARPA and the US Army and the Air Force. All of these papers I started studying, and a lot of them had the reticular activating system as the main topic. And these papers didn't even exist on PubMed. It was crazy. Like, no one could access this stuff. And luckily, because I was funded by the government, I had the fellowship, I was able to access that stuff. It was very, very unreal. But at this moment, during my PhD, when I discovered that I'm fucked, I read this book, Outliers, this Malcolm Gladwell book, and it had the 10,000 hour rule. It fucking depressed me even more, because I was like, okay, I already spent all this time doing my undergrad, then I did my master's, then I did my PhD, now I'm a neuroscientist. But now, if I want to get good with girls, get good with sex, have a great girlfriend and eventually a wife, and like have my dick work again, it's going to take me 10,000 hours? Holy shit. This book made me really depressed. But then I thought, what the fuck does this guy know? What the fuck does this book know? This guy's not a neuroscientist. He hasn't studied the government papers. He doesn't know all the secrets of the brain. I do. So towards the end of my PhD, I made this goal for myself, that I'm going to rewire the reticular activating system. And I said, fuck this is stupid. And I proved this wrong. This is actually completely wrong. And I'll show you how you can download expert knowledge very quickly and achieve your dreams. So this mental block, right? What was the mental block that I had during my PhD? Well, first, I was trying to get girls, right? I was desperately, in my last 2 years of PhD, man, I was so desperate. Like, I was trying anything I could to like date a girl, kiss a girl, hold hands with a girl, like anything I could. I was that desperate. So I started looking online. And if someone asks me now, I think online dating is a terrible thing. I think it's ruining the world, all these different websites. And I think it's, once you learn how to approach girls, how to pick up girls through the techniques I'm going to teach you today, like, you will never need to go online or DM and slide into DMs on Instagram. Like, please, that is stupid. Like, this is not what you want to do, because what all these men are doing, 99.9% of men are unhappy, and they're not getting the hot girls. They don't have a hot wife. They don't have a happy relationship because they're doing all of this bullshit. Their reticular activating system is completely blocked. And for me, my online, it was horrible. I had horrible luck. Nothing happened. I was going to parties. I was drinking at clubs. Like, I had some PhD friends who had money, and I would watch them with like these hot girls and giving these parties at their houses, and then I would sometimes go and I'd be like, my God, like, why does this guy have this hot girl in his arms and I don't? Why does this guy have this hot wife and I don't? Most of these guys were not academics. They were in other fields, but I didn't know what the hell to do. And I, of course, tried drugs, because doing drugs, drinking alcohol, going to clubs, it kind of gave me that liquid courage. And I tried to bank on it, but it didn't work. It didn't get me where I wanted to be. And then the breakthrough happened. This breakthrough was huge, right? And I did some, earlier I mentioned this, right? I understood very early on that if my professors are these duds and they're living the life which is the opposite of the life I want to live, right? Why is that happening? If they have all of this knowledge, if they're experts, why are they living paycheck to paycheck? And I talked about the money stuff in part 2. Go. Please refer to that for the money stuff. But I wanted to understand what the professors are missing. And I fucking figured it out, man. Basically, the top research in the world is done by the government, right? Because the government doesn't want these blocks in their soldiers. This is like defense of the country, right? So all the hacks that the government was doing, and this mirror project was a big one. I'll tell you what, this mirror project completely changed my life, because there was this code word mirror project that the government was working on, which I started digging up. And what the hell is this mirror? What are they doing? How are they using this mirror project to rewire the reticular activating system to remove those blocks and those viruses that are in the brains of the soldiers and other government officials, right, in the army? And I wound up on this word, rigid constructs, which really struck me. There was a paper, there was an MIT Department of Defense paper, and it talked about how the government is taking away the rigid constructs that exist in the reticular activating system of these people, of people that they want to rewire. And they were able to do that under this mirror project, right? And this is not what you, like, if you think it's this, right? If you think that there's we're only using 10% of the brain, we're only using 10% of the reticular activating system, that's not the case. No, this is completely false, right? All these Hollywood movies that make you believe, you know, there's this movie Lucy that came out, and other Hollywood movies that make you think that we're only using a little bit of the brain, and then this person started using the whole brain. That's bullshit, right? If you look at the brain, right? Visual center, we got the brainstem here, right? We got the temporal lobe. Deep inside the temporal lobe is memory. Like, we're using everything. We're using the whole brain. And it's not that we need to, some parts of the brain are asleep, or they don't have any connections, or you know, they're dormant. It's none of that. The reality is that there is wiring in all of these parts of the brain, and especially the reticular activating system. We just have to rewire it. The wiring is bad because of the virus that's in there. So this was bullshit, right? Obviously, so this is not what I'm talking about. This is actually what I'm talking about, right? So again, this right here is the RAS, as you know. This is actually what I'm talking about. Neurons that fire together, wire together. And I'll tell you about the aha moment really soon. So Donald Hebb, which is who's one of my colleagues at McGill, right? Donald Hebb. He was one of the fathers of neuroplasticity, which is brain change and brain transformation and brain rewiring. And he came up with this quote, Neurons that fire together, wire together. What does that mean? Okay. So let's say you and me, right? Let's say you're going to learn something from me, right? I'm an expert at something and now you're learning something from me. If I can get your reticular activating system, those neurons, to fire at the same time as my reticular activating system neurons, so my RAS fires at the same time as your RAS, we will wire together. That's what the government figured out. Once we're wired together, you get the download of what I have. The expert downloads into the student. And you're going to be mind blown when I tell you about my aha moment, right? So you know this, now you know what this means. And by the way, in part 1, I drew the diagram of how this exactly works in the brain, right? How the spikes are happening, how the neurons are firing. So go check that out. So this was my aha moment, right? The biggest discovery that neuroscience has ever made, right? You might be able to guess what this is. Maybe you take a guess, right? First word starts with an N, the second word starts with an M. What do you think this could be? I will reveal this to you very soon because I think it's way more fun if you can predict and guess and reveal in your own brain what this is. Because if you discover it yourself, you're going to really learn it, and it's going to be deeply ingrained in your reticular activating system. So I was at McGill, right? I was doing my PhD, and I learned all this stuff, right? I figured out this technique, and I was like, holy shit. I need to prove that this will work for me. That was my only goal. So this technique, in order for me to test it, I had to go in an environment where, one, there would be experts who could teach me, give me the lessons. Real experts, by the way. I'll tell you how to tell who's an expert and who's not an expert, who's a charlatan very soon. They're experts. And it has to have a lot of hot girls. I would have to go in this environment. So I defended my PhD the 3rd week of August, and September 1st, 2013, I flew to Vegas. And by the way, I had a lot of debt, a fuck ton of debt. And in Vegas, I rewired my money circuitry in the brain. And if you want to figure out how that, again, it's in part 2. Huge, huge part of this series. So go watch part 2. So I moved to Vegas, right? And I had this huge debt, but it's like, doesn't matter. I went. And in Vegas, my number one goal was to find an expert. Because all the hot girls around, I was still afraid of. I was even more afraid. I had my stomach in pain. My stomach was hurting like hell that first day in Vegas when I saw so many hot girls there. So many hot girls. I couldn't even believe it. Right? So this is my goal. And I needed to find an expert with the perfect RAS wiring. And I knew how to tell. I knew this because I learned it during my neuroscience studies, right? And one thing that I learned very early is that stay away from gurus. Here's the issue, man. Here's the issue. Gurus don't really know. They pretend. They fake it till you make it, and they never make it. So they're faking it their whole life, right? Here's the thing with gurus. Excuse me. The problem with gurus is that they are in the limelight, right? They're showing off. They have all this showmanship, right? They want to show off to the world, look at this, look at that. And when I went to Vegas, I had heard about these gurus online. In fact, I was part of these inner circles and these inner tribes in these underground forums and stuff, right? These pickup forums when I was in Montreal. And so I went to Vegas very excited to meet these guys. This was the top dating company in the world at the time. And so I went there and I would see what types of girls these gurus are picking up. And they call these girls hot. Oh, look at this hot girl I picked up. And I was like, that girl ain't hot. Look, we're in Vegas, man. Why don't you pick up the real hotties, like the cocktail waitresses and the strippers, right? The VIP hostess, right? Those are the real hot girls. Or even the hotel receptionists and stuff, like they were banging, like wow, hot, right? Of course, lots of fake breasts and stuff, fake butts, but damn, like I didn't give a shit, right? So these gurus were fake. They didn't have high standards, and I realized that very early, and I was shocked. So now my goal was stay away from the people who are like in the limelight. You know, they have YouTube like because they have YouTube channels, they're doing all of this stuff, like making videos every single day. You know, they're like going into some really beautiful background and, you know, with some building or, you know, like in a different country, and they're like talking about pickup, and I'm like, where are your results? And that's what I really cared about, results, right? So as I was struggling and getting my mind blown and completely shocked at how lame these pickup gurus were in Vegas, I found Evil Stifler. Now, Evil Stifler, in my humble opinion, is the greatest pickup artist of all time. Nobody even knows this guy. He was hidden. He was secretive, shy, introverted, but damn, he knew how to pick up girls. Girls loved this guy. He loved game. And game is, you know, when you go and pick up girls, you do pickup lines and you do stories and you pull her, and then you go to one venue to another, you know, then you take her home and this type of thing, right? This is game. The psychological play with a girl to seduce her. We call this game. He loved game. He loved game more than me. And I loved game. Now I play a different game, which I love also. Girls love this guy, right? And I'll tell you what really convinced me. There was one time we were at Surrender, and at that time in Vegas, I was a student, right? I was paying, the first month I paid $1,500 out of my credit card debt. More debt. I paid $1,500 to get trained by the pickup gurus. Now, the reason I found Evil Stifler is because one of the pickup guys, instructors, he brought Evil Stifler with him from San Francisco. And Evil Stifler, he had nobody really knew his real name. He had a normal job. He was a skinny guy, a short dude, not very fit, not very good looking, just an average dude, right? Below average, good looking. And he brought him from San Francisco. And I was lucky because that first weekend, Evil Stifler stayed with me in my apartment. And he was broke, right? And this is something I found with all of these different mentors that I had. They would always be really, really good in one thing, right? So their RAS was wired, it was enriched. It had the good wiring in one thing. So in this case, for Evil Stifler, his RAS was wired good, right? It had the proper wiring for picking up girls. Not for money. For money, it was maladaptive. Remember, we learned maladaptive, the virus that's in the brain. So in his RAS, the part for money or for deeper relationships, for fitness, was all maladaptive wiring, bad wiring, the virus. But for pickup, this guy was amazing. So I remember one time, so that first weekend, he was my roommate. We go to Surrender. It's a nightclub in Vegas. And, I really wanted to learn what was going on, so I would film, right? I had this little Sony Handycam, and I would just film everything. I was a nerd, right? I was a super, nerdy dude. So I wanted to film everything. What the hell was going on, how they were picking up girls and stuff, right? Let me just make sure this is all filming. Yep, everything is good, right? So I would be filming, and at a certain point, Evil Stifler, there was this one girl coming right from the side of the bar by herself, right? No girl, no one at all, just alone, which is rare in Vegas. Maybe she was coming back from the bathroom, we have no idea. So she comes, and Evil Stifler is right there. I was his wingman, but I was also filming. Approaches this girl. I don't know what the hell he's saying, but he said something in her ear, and she smiles, and they hit it off, and they're talking to each other, and I shit you not, within 5 minutes, he grabs her hand and he goes upstairs. Now, at Surrender nightclub, this was a Wednesday. You are not allowed upstairs. There is nobody upstairs. There's no security. It's all empty upstairs. You're only allowed downstairs. And there's these ropes, right? So you can't go upstairs. So he grabs her hand and starts taking her upstairs. He moves the rope and he just heads upstairs. And I'm going upstairs with him with the camera, and I'm fucking scared. I'm shit scared, man. Right? What am I going to go to jail? Can something really bad happen? I'm in this foreign city that I just got here. It's my first month, right? So let me just fix this real quick. So basically, let me just make sure this is okay. Sorry about the disturbance. So I take the camera, and I also pull the ropes, and I just go with him, and I put the rope back. I was quite smart in this stuff. I was just really, really scared, but I was smart, right? I learned very quickly what was going on and what I needed to do, and I was so desperate, right? So even if I get caught or I get in trouble, it's okay, because I really need to learn what the fuck Evil Stifler is doing. So I go with the camera upstairs, and dude, this guy, at Surrender, there's these little bungalow things where there's a jacuzzi in the back. These little tables everywhere. It's like a bungalow, like a mini bungalow. So he takes the girl behind the couch, right? So imagine there's a couch here, there's a couch here. He goes in the middle of the couch, and he's just fucking this girl. I remember, dude, I was filming like this. I saw him, and he was turned around, and he was just like this. And I filmed the whole thing. Real life porn scene. He fucks this girl. And I'm mind blown, right? And I'm like, fuck. I need to write this down. What the hell just happened? I don't want to forget this. It's so ingrained in my brain, but I need to write this down because I'm a nerd, right? I was writing down my neuroscience notes, but I need to write this. And then I didn't, but then the next day, we go to Excess nightclub. I'm there with Evil Stifler. So this was Friday. This is Wednesday. And then Wednesday. Thursday we went to Marquee. This is Friday. So this is 2 days after. It was always Surrender, Marquee, Excess. Yeah. So Friday we go to Excess, and okay. So one thing to know about Evil Stifler is that he doesn't give a fuck. This guy has massive dark side integration, right? He told me this story where at some point in his life, the doctor told him that he only has 1 year to live. So for an entire year, all he did was pick up. He just gamed for 1 year. Morning to night, morning to night. He just didn't go to work. He was just doing that. This guy was very, very good. He loved the game, man. He loved the game. So at XS, we go there, and there's this set, or this group of girls, bachelorette party. The bachelorette girl, who's going to get married, her best friend, and then a bunch of other girls, right? And I remember that I thought the best friend was her sister because they look so alike. But yeah, it was her best friend. Really, really hot girls. Everyone was hot. They were from Chicago. Fucking hot girls. The hottest girls in the whole club, right? So they had the big table. There was a bunch of guys who were like, giving them drinks because they bought a bunch of like this vodka, Grey Goose vodka, the big Grey Goose vodka bottles in Vegas. So they were drinking and having fun, and we weren't allowed to enter those tables because we didn't have a table. We were sort of, I was broke, of course. Evil Stifler was broke. But Evil Stifler always had this tendency to talk to girls at tables and pull them away. So he goes to this table, there's a rope here, he goes to the table, he's whispering in the girl's ear, I have no idea what the hell he's saying. He's very secretive, right? Like this guy has no YouTube channel, right? He's very underground, like he wants to stay away from the limelight. So he's talking to her and all that. And then he says stuff, and then all of a sudden she like climbs the curtain. And now she's going with him somewhere. I'm following with the camera. I still have the footage, by the way. I still have it. I'm going with the camera, and Evil Stifler takes her to the dance floor, and he's doing like this shitty dance, blah, 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 but he keeps saying something to the girl, he keeps saying something to the girl, and there's like this chemistry, this really good rapport that he has. And then he makes out with the girl. This is the best friend of the bachelorette. Right? The bachelorette didn't want to come first, right? He was trying, and she like put one foot over the rope, but then she went back. She didn't want to come. Of course, she's getting married, so she didn't want to like make out with some random guy, but maybe she does. So then he left her, and then the best friend climbs, and the best friend goes, and he starts making out with her. Really hot blonde girl, right? Big titties, all that stuff. They're making out, I'm filming, right? I'm like right there filming everything. The girls don't know, even Stifler, Evil Stifler doesn't know until today that I was filming him. Nobody has any idea. It was all for me. It was all secret. So he starts making out with this girl, and then he comes up to me and he's like, hey, watch this. I'm like, fuck, okay. So now he takes the girl back to the table, right, to the drinks. And he says something to the bachelorette, the one he couldn't take the first time, right? And he still has the best friend in one arm. And in the other arm, he's saying something to the bachelorette. And I don't know what the hell he said, but she climbed over. It gets better. Now he takes both of them to the dance floor. He's dancing, he's saying something to both of them, and now both of them start making out. I've never seen anything like that in my life. This was like I was 3 weeks into Vegas at the time. And as they're making out, he starts fingering them. I was watching so closely. This guy put his finger down the pants and and then he put it under the others, and he's fingering both girls at the same time as they're making out. I was like, fuck this, man. Fuck this. Expert found. And then that night, I got this book. It's all password protected. I wanted to make sure nobody could get in here. So I've had this book for 12 years, and it was born that night with Evil Stifler. Because when I saw what I saw and nobody else saw, and the only reason I saw it is because this guy was staying with me for the weekend. Right, Wednesday, and then he left Monday. That's where the black book was born. I still remember, man. Unbelievable, right? So I asked Evil Stifler, anytime you come to Vegas, you can stay with me. And he came to Vegas very often. And so I lived in these apartments near Tuscany Casino. And every time he would come from San Francisco, he would usually just drive because it's close enough. He would just stay with me. So he became sort of my roommate. Not permanent, but kind of my roommate. And what I told him is, you just teach me everything you know, you give me all the lessons, and you can stay with me for free. That was the deal we had, and this guy was broke, and I paid for his dinner sometimes, the steak and eggs or $4, whatever, I paid it, no problem. And this guy ate like shit anyway, so all the food was cheap. Sometimes I took him to a buffet, right? And as I was learning from Evil Stifler, I became so good, right? I got these downloads from him, right? Somehow, he rewired my RAS, removed the virus, removed the blockages completely, and like literally cleaned me out. And all of that knowledge that he had literally downloaded into my RAS. It was unbelievable, the ability of the brain to rewire itself. I studied this in my neuroscience, and I talked about this in the previous master classes. If you cut the wire, right? Imagine you take a person and you cut the wire from the eyes to the visual system. You cut the wire. The person will be blind because you cannot see without the visual cortex in the back of the brain. But imagine that cut wire, you reroute it into the part of the brain that's responsible for hearing. Those hearing neurons will make you see again. The brain can cure blindness by rewiring itself. So it doesn't take much. It just takes the right lessons. So I became an instructor. Within 1 to 2 months of meeting Evil Stifler, I was a student. I was an instructor. And it's not that I wanted to be an instructor, because I still wanted to be a student. I really like being a student, by the way. Even today, I love learning. I love discovering. So when the company asked me to become an instructor and start coaching these students, I was like, damn, I won't have as much fun as being a student. But I took it because I didn't have to pay the $1,500 because I was so broke. So because I wanted to save the $1,500 a month, I took the job and I became an instructor very, very quickly. And everyone was shocked because this guy had just come in to Vegas, is like a virgin, never got laid, never held hands with a girl, never kissed a girl, and now he's an instructor. And I'll tell you about my virginity story soon too, right? Just right now. So we went to Miami. This was without Evil Stifler. I had already learned everything from him. I was studying from the Black Book. I took it everywhere with me. I go to Miami, and one of my buddies, Hung, literally his name is Hung, Asian guy. I went with him, and I had him film me. So we were at Lincoln Road in Miami, in South Beach, and I told him that I'm going to approach girls at supermarket and malls and clothing stores in the street, and you just film me. So I remember I approached one girl who was with her mom. They were at like H&M or Forever 21, one of those stores. And I got her number, even though her mom was there. And this girl was like young, like 20-year-old girl, right? Really hot girl. So I get her number. Then I approach another girl who was on the street. She's like a surfer girl, really like strong, like a CrossFit, strong girl, strong built girl. She didn't give me her number because she had a boyfriend. All good. It's like, okay, we're friends, blah, 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 we left. Then I saw this really hot girl. She was wearing very low cut shorts, like short shorts. And she looked Eastern European. And I've always loved Eastern European girls. I'm most attracted to Eastern European girls. And she was Eastern European. So I saw her, she would be walking this way, she went to the store, then she walked this way, she went to the store. And I went and approached her on the street. And Hung was filming it, and I saw the whole tape later. And I still have that too. So now we start talking, she's very, very nice. I do my lines and, all the stuff that Evil Stifler taught me, and I'm just doing that with every single girl. And of course, it doesn't work all the time. But it does work a lot, right? So I start talking to this girl. I do confirm she's from Eastern Europe. And then we decide to meet for drinks later that night at a bar. And of course, she was there. We had a few drinks. We were at a speakeasy in Miami. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of people there. I was the life of the party. I was approaching other girls while she was with me. She was totally cool with it. By the way, I was still a virgin. I became an instructor while I was a virgin because I was so good at pickup, but I was still addicted to porn. I still could not get my dick up. So anyway, that night, we go back to her place, hotel she was living at. And, we had some drinks and we're like kissing and I'm very nervous. I know I can have sex with this girl, but my dick is not getting up. I have performance anxiety, a lot of problems. And I also have been trying to put my condom on, and it's like, when I put up my condom on, my dick doesn't stay hard. It's like terrible, right? So we end up going to sleep. And it was terrible because I thought that was the night I was going to lose my virginity. The next morning, I knew what Evil Stifler, one thing he taught me is never ever be desperate for sex. Doesn't matter. He knew I was a virgin. I told him, he's like, look, I don't care if you're a virgin. Never fucking settle. Never look desperate. Never ever look thirsty. So in the morning, the last night I couldn't get my dick up, blah, blah, blah. She knew that. But in the morning, I played it cool. I was super cool. I was putting on my socks. I was putting on my shoes, about to leave. And this girl, she runs to me and fucking rapes me, man. It was the most beautiful thing, right? Because she came up to me because she knew I was going to leave, right? And I was playing so cool. And she really wanted some dick. So she comes up to me, she rips off my clothes, right? She whacks me off. So now I am like half chub, little bit of a boner. I put the condom on, and for the first time in my life, my dick stayed hard. So she comes inside me, right? She comes inside me. I'm inside her, right? And I'll tell you what happened about the coming. I'm inside her, and we're on the bed, we're both sitting, and I'm fucking her like that, right? Sitting down, right? So she's facing me, I'm facing her. Think of like a missionary, but we're like facing each other. 15 seconds, man. 15 seconds. And I ejaculate in the condom. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to be happy or sad, because that moment I lost my virginity. And then I later on found out she's like some famous news reporter from Eastern Europe. I won't tell you the country because she's still famous and I don't want any trouble. So I try to keep things very confidential as much as I can because I really do respect people's privacy. So I fucked her. Thank God. That was the moment I lost my virginity. She went back to Eastern Europe. I was back to pick up, and I even tried to call her that weekend. She didn't reply because she'd already gone back. And then there's more stories with her later on in life, but I'll tell you that later. Another story. This was super interesting, man. Evil Stifler really taught me great stuff. So one time, I was filming another instructor in LA. It was at this club. It's a lounge. What's it called? It's a really cool one. Oh man, I forget. But it's like a really, really cool place in LA. It's not coming to me right now. But so we go inside, and I'm filming this guy, right? And as I'm filming, Evil Stifler is not there anymore. I already learned everything, so I don't need him with me. So it's another instructor. I'm filming him, and while I'm filming him, I was very good at this, right? I was very, very good. Like because I was doing it for myself, I became really good at doing it for others. So I was filming this guy, and even when he went to the bathroom, I was just standing outside waiting for him. I was that devoted to the game. And while I was outside the bathroom, this hot fucking girl, Eastern European, Lithuania, like you call it what you want, Eastern European look, right? The Russian look. She comes up to me and she said something like, hey, are you in line or something like that? And I didn't give a shit. I just wanted to film the instructor. And I didn't care how hot she was, like whatever. I was already dating girls at the time and I didn't care. So I brushed her off. I'm like, yeah, whatever, right? I ignored her. Another Evil Stifler thing. And dude, this girl started following me around. She never saw the camera, by the way. Even at the end of the night, she never saw the camera, and I filmed everything. Okay, now I'm following the instructor, filming him, while she's by my side, and I'm gaming her and saying all the stuff that Evil Stifler taught me. So by the end of the night, and by the way, this is when I knew that I was good, because the instructor came up to me and he said, this is towards the end of the night when it was time either I take her to her place or I go back with the instructor. And I was very devoted, so I wanted to go back with the instructor and do debrief and stuff. So he comes up to me, he's like, hey, you're gonna take that girl home, right? And I'm like, no, I was just gonna keep our boot camp, right? We're gonna keep teaching the student and we're gonna keep doing this. And he comes up to me, he's like, Farhan, get the hell out of here. That girl is a 9. Get out of here and go do your thing with this girl. Go. Forget about filming. I was like, okay. So we went to a Brazilian restaurant that night, had a drink, had some food. Then we went back to her place and we had a great night. And those were one of the nights when I realized how good I am and how much better I am than the gurus. Because even though this girl was a 9 to this instructor, for me, she was like maybe a 7. So I knew that my high standards was, and then my high standards were good for me. And the last story was with the Jewish Latina. This was with Evil Stifler. This was maybe 4 months in to my education. There was this really, really cute girl. I didn't know who she was, what her name was, where she was from, but she worked at Lush inside one of the Vegas malls. So she would get out and we would be doing game, right? And around 5 o'clock every day, I would see her leave and go home, right? She would walk home. But we were picking up girls, we were doing game. And this one time, Evil Stifler saw me, right? He saw me looking at her. And he comes up to me, he's like, go right now. And I went. And I literally ran after her while she was walking. She had this curly hair, dark, like a brunette, dark body. And I talked to her, I picked her up, got her number, and then I started dating her. And the reason I really remember this girl from back in the day is because my white friends who were Jewish, who loved Latinas, thought that she was a 10. Right? And I remember she would come to my house. Then after we did our thing, she would, wash the dishes, she would cook for me, and then these my white friends were seeing me. It's like, this girl you just met a couple of weeks ago, and now she's cooking for you and cleaning for you. What the hell is going on? Right? And of course I didn't tell them because it was all a secret for me. So I still remember these moments. And now things become more interesting, right? So I do a year in Vegas. I rewire my brain, right? My RAS is rewired, right? Evil Stifler switched me on, right? Think of this thing like a switch, right? Once you start switching on different parts of your RAS based on your goals, that rewiring will allow you to achieve any goal, right? That's why I call this book the Limitless Book, because these notes allowed me to achieve other goals later on in life. And even the goals I have now, it's just about rewiring the RAS. And that's what I'm doing every single day. So I rewired it, all good, right? Everything perfect. I got switched on, right? The switch was on. But there was a problem. Big problem. Just having sex with these party girls, these girls that I just meet, a lot of those girls who were tourists who would come to Vegas and they would leave in 3 days, or they would leave the next day, or they would leave that night. So these flings and these one-night stands weren't giving me the satisfaction, the fulfillment I needed as a man. So I felt empty, man. I felt really empty, right? This is what I really wanted at the time. I wanted intimacy. Because look, even as a child, like I got a lot of love from my mom, right? She would help me with my homework. She would hang out with me. She would I got a lot of love from her, right? She really took care of me. She was a housewife, right? So she was like 24/7 trying to make me a badass academic, and she did, right? I became the best, right? I also wanted to have deeper sex. I knew, right? Like I come from an Indian background. So I know there's this thing, this Kama Sutra is there and Tantra is there. Like I'd heard about these concepts, but I didn't know shit about it. I didn't know how deep sex works. What is multi-orgasmic, and how can you give many, many orgasms to the girl? What is really good sex like? How does it feel to have sex without a condom? Like I didn't know these things. I had no idea, right? And I wanted something long-term, because now, what I taught you in part 2, right? Now that I knew how to run businesses, I knew how to create businesses, I knew how to create money from scratch, I knew what decisions to make, how to get a good business partner, how to do a good product. Like I knew all of that stuff. Like I really understood it. So now I was ready for something deeper, right? Not just some shallow stuff. And I wanted the perfect woman. Because I had dated so many girls, because I had seen so many hot girls, I knew that I did not want to get married to someone who is lower than all of that. In fact, I wanted to marry the perfect woman, right? And I had my checklist. For example, a lot of those women in Vegas were fake. Fake boobs, fake titties. Fake boobs. Fake boobs, fake asses, right? Fake personality, very shallow, a lot of makeup, cigarette smoking, alcohol drinking, right? They weren't like the type you take home to your parents. So I wanted that type of girl. I wanted a girl who didn't wear makeup, who wasn't smoking cigarettes, right? I wanted that type of girl. And so that was impossible in Vegas. So then I remember one time, we had a great workout at a gym, me and my buddy who's a hedge fund manager from the UK. Really awesome, really, really awesome dude. Really, we had some great stories together. I told him, right? He was a millionaire. Now he's a shit ton of money. He's managing billions of dollars in his hedge fund now in the UK. In London, he lives in downtown. He was telling me that, so I told him the whole story. I'm like, look, and we were kind of like reminiscing, because he came from a nerd culture. He was like a very like protected and sheltered, just like I was. So I told him, look, man, we've come very far. He had a hot girlfriend. I was dating hot girls. We've come very far, but I'm still missing something. I feel empty inside. So this guy, he gave me a tip. He's like, look, a lot of my millionaire buddies, like in the tech world, they know this guy in Ukraine, this sex master, this real expert that Like, he's not a guru, right? There's no YouTube channel, there's no course, like, he's nowhere on the internet. If you want to meet him, you got to go to Ukraine, right? So I went, right? In Kiev, I was there. I lived there for a year. Learning from this guy. And he had what I wanted when it comes to wife. Not when it comes to health, because he was fat, he had this big belly, he was addicted to cigarettes, he didn't give a shit, he was a hippie, right? He was broke. Like, I didn't want any of that shit. But he had a gorgeous wife. And his wife literally worshipped the ground he walked on. He was so charismatic. Like, they had such a loving relationship, and the wife was gorgeous, right? So Eastern European, wanted that, right? And I knew they were having amazing sex. This guy knew Tantra, he knew Kama Sutra, he knew all that shit. Like, this guy was like into sex all the time. Like, this is what he was doing, right? And he was 50 years old, crazy haircut, but the energy of a 20-year-old. I knew this guy was my mentor. It has to be my mentor, right? And of course, he had the deep connection. I saw him and his wife communicate over that 1 year. And then there was this Tantra story, right? And when this happened, right, this is when I knew expert found, right? It's like in a video game, expert found. So what basically happened is there's these Tantra tribes in Kiev. And this guy, he belonged to one of them. And it was very exclusive, you know, you gotta like know the right people. So because I was already an entrepreneur and I was hanging out with like, you know, other business owners and founders and stuff, I went to a co-working space. And I would be talking to everyone knew me, you know, I was the foreigner, but I was also speaking Russian because I had learned Russian very quickly. Again, I rewired my brain to learn Russian. It was very, very easy. And then I would talk to these guys, right? And one of them was in the same Tantra tribe as this guy. And he was a business owner. He didn't really care about all this Tantra stuff, but he was in the tribe because he wanted to meet girls. So I got invited to this Tantra workshop. So I was there. It was about 12 of us. And the sex master was there, and I saw him in action. This guy, his wife was with him, right? Loving relationship. She's literally like awed by this guy, right? He's just like, she's totally in love with him. And he's giving full body orgasms with this energy, some energetic stuff he's doing to these two girls at the same time as his wife is right by him watching. It blew my mind. When I saw that Tantra, when I saw that this guy has such a deep energetic connection to these two women and his wife at the same time, right? This guy had no formal education, right? He's just like literally a hippie. And of course I had this with me. I took this to the Tantra workshop. I was writing down exactly what was happening so I don't forget. And that night, I knew the expert was found. It was this guy. And again, my goal became to rewire, right? I had to rewire. Because at that moment, you know, as I was talking to this guy, I was realizing, you know, as we started talking, our first introductory meeting, when I finally convinced him to talk to me, right? I finally got access to him through my other friend, I realized I had these blocks. Right? And he told me about these blocks. He's like, look, Farhan, if you want a beautiful wife, a gorgeous wife, and you want her and you to have an amazing relationship and have kids and grow a family and travel the world and do all those great things, which I wanted to do, which I told him, right? And you want the relationship to be maintained for a long period of time, and you want to be truly, truly fulfilled as a man, then you have to remove these 3 blocks. One of my blocks was that during my Vegas times, I wanted to have a harem, right? I dreamt of a mansion where there'd be different rooms full of different girls, and I would just go one girl to another and have sex with all of them, right? Based on the day or whatever, like Hugh Hefner, right? Like like this type of like Playboy type thing, right? The other block I had was I was obsessed with one night stands. Because in Vegas, I learned to objectify women, right? These women are there for me to gain from, right? If I insult them and make them feel bad, which ends up, this type of girl wants an asshole, so I'm gonna sleep with her, I would make her feel bad, and I would really like make her feel terrible. I remember like there was this one blonde lawyer at one of the clubs I went to, and I made her feel so bad, she literally elbowed me, right? She like elbowed me, like it didn't hurt, but it was this type of vibe, right? I was by any means necessary to get the one night stand. And of course, as I said, for me, women were objects. And the first meeting, he told me, he said, if you have these beliefs, you're never gonna get a good relationship. It's never gonna happen, right? So the training that I got from him, the lessons that I got from him, the first goal, the first step was to remove these blocks and all the other blocks I had. And this is, when I talk about the virus, right? When I first started Vegas, my reticular activating system, you can say both, but activating is the proper term, it was enriched for my survival, right? But as I kept getting addicted to dating more and more girls and having more and more sex, and just girl after another, one girl after another, one party after another, that enriched state in the reticular activating system became maladaptive. That's how a virus happens. Malware, right? So he removed this. So this sex expert, during our lessons, it took some time. It wasn't like very quick. It wasn't like a few weeks like it was with Evil Stifler, because all that Evil Stifler knowledge was so ingrained deep in my brainstem that rewiring it took a little bit longer than a few weeks. But it happened. It happened pretty quickly. And then I learned the biggest secret, right? The biggest secret of all. And this is, of course, it's all explained in my black book that I've been keeping. It looks old as shit, huh? But yeah, I'm telling you, the reason I keep showing you this is because you need to keep your own black book. Start a black book right now. Buy one of these, buy whatever the hell you want. Just make it look cool so you preserve it. And I'm gonna give this to my kids. When I become a father, hopefully one day, I can't wait to become a father, I'm gonna give this to my kids so they can also learn. So the biggest discovery in neuroscience, right, which I wrote in the black book, I wrote the specific practical aspects of it, but I learned it during my PhD when I was doing the government research, right? Before I tell you the biggest secret of neuroscience, the sex expert, when he rewired me through the lessons, those blocks of one night stand, having a harem, objectifying women went away. Wasn't easy, but it went away. Like I thought I had no hope because it was so deeply wired. Unlearning that I thought was going to be impossible, but it happened. Not only did the unlearning happen, and that virus was removed, but I was able to rewire my reticular activating system to now attract my dream wife, which is, wow, what a gift from God, right? So the way I want you to think is maladaptive, this state. So now my brain was again in a maladaptive state, right? My brainstem. It was, I wanted to objectify women. I just wanted one night stands. I wanted to stay single. All of this is very bad wiring. It's maladaptive. But I needed to make it enriched. And I did, towards love. And these are the 3 steps that I'm about to give you. And this is, I just drew some viruses here so you understand, you really get a physical understanding of what's going on in the brain, right? It's literally, you've become infected and you need to remove this infection, or you're going to stay like that forever. All those limiting beliefs that you have. Right? So what is this technique? Maybe you guessed it by now. Right? Remember the Mirror project? The code word by the government? Look, neural mirroring. This was it. I learned this during my PhD that last year when I was looking at all those secret papers. And once I learned about neural mirroring, which taught me exactly the type of expert I'm looking for and what to learn and what thought patterns to look for, because these experts, even though they're only enriched in one thing and maladaptive in everything else, the thing they're enriched in, they're so good that if you understand the way they think, which I did, then you could extract that knowledge, which will remove the virus you have and download automatically all of that expert knowledge, so you become the expert. It's that easy, right? So the 10,000 hour rule, all that bullshit. Oh, it's going to take you 5 years. You have to approach millions of girls. Bullshit. That's bullshit, right? So there's 3 steps. 3 steps to turning the switch on. First step is remove the virus. Remove the limiting belief. Remove the block. It's like, imagine your brain has become clogged, right? Like, imagine you have a glass of dirty water. All this nasty shit is in there. If you try to put clean water in there, pure distilled reverse osmosis water, it's still going to be dirty because there's so much dirt. The only way something can go in is by removing the dirty water, removing the virus, removing the clog. That's why when all of this stuff was entering my brain at first with the gurus and different fake people that I met, nothing was going in. I was still the same because the virus wasn't removed. You're not going to let anything in to your reticular activating system unless you remove the block first. Remove that clog, okay? So you have to remove. The next one is, the first step is normal. The second step is normal. Once you remove the maladaptive state, you become normal, right? It's like you have a glass of a bunch of dirty water, you throw it away, you're empty, you're normal, like it's a normal glass. So you need to be empty first, or nothing will be let in. You're going to have all these limiting beliefs, you're going to be arrogant and stubborn, you're going to be stuck in life forever. So normal, right? So I'll tell you how to think of it from a computer perspective soon as well. I'll tell you very soon. Yeah, I'll tell you here actually. I'll tell you here. Okay. Third step, the most fun step, by the way. First 2 are kind of fun, but this is the most fun. Download. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Once you're firing at the same, the neurons are firing at the same time. They are synchronous, right? Like a musical melody, right? Brr, brr, brr. I explained that in the first masterclass. Go watch that again. You can easily download. You download, you become this on the same page, same frequency, and you just download the information and you got it all. So that's the third step. And if you want to think of it like a computer, right? You start off with the virus, you remove the virus, and now you have a normal computer, right? So you have a virus computer, and then you have a normal computer. But then when you download the expert knowledge, what do you become? You become a supercomputer. And that is what I mean by being limitless, by achieving any goal you want. Again, all your problems stem from one thing, the brain. Everything starts in the brain. It all starts in the brain. But once you learn to rewire the most important part of the brain, this brain stem, the reticular activating system inside, you can achieve any goal you want because you're going to understand how to think. I'm teaching you how to think here. So you can get anywhere you want in life. That's what I want from you, okay? Now, how did I get my dream wife? How did I create that shit? Here's the top secret of mind-blowing sex. Let's talk about that first. Is it genetics? No, some people, like those porn stars, they're just born with good genes so they can have good sex. No, they're injecting stuff into their dick. It's not genetics. Is it technique? You do this position or that position. You do this type of meditation, that type of breathing. Is it fitness? If you have a six-pack, if you're jacked, you have big legs, higher testosterone. No. Is it blood flow? It could be blood flow, right? You have more blood into your dick area, into your balls, into your upper leg. You get blood to your core so you can fuck better. No. Is it size? Like you have a bigger dick, you can satisfy the woman more, you can go deeper into her, you can take up the whole pussy. Is it size? No. I used to think all of this was true. No. Here's the answer. Here is the answer. And it's not cock size. I told you. It's not cum load. I know what you're thinking. What's the answer? I discovered this after getting married. Chemistry. Once you have the perfect chemistry with the woman, sex becomes mind-blowing. There's no technique. All those sex gurus telling you about breathing and the heart chakra and the ball hard breathe. I've done all that stuff, man. None of it worked. But freezing your balls and putting ice and doing like edging and making your dick bigger and these like different machines you can use to stretch your dick. All bullshit. It's all chemistry. Once you meet the right girl, and maybe you're already married, and I'm going to show you how to rewire if you're already married and not having good sex and not having a deep relationship. But relationships are not just about sex. Of course, sex is a really important point. Of course, it's so crucial to have great sex in a relationship, but it's way more than that. You're having sex on a much deeper level. It's a great connection, man. And this greatest piece, which is the last thing I want to tell you, this is, I believe, the greatest piece for a man on earth. Of course, there's belief in God. There is spirituality. There's enlightenment. I get that. Creative endeavors, entrepreneurship. Becoming a billionaire. I get it. This is. But in my opinion, this is the greatest peace. Maybe not the greatest pleasure or the greatest hedonism, but this is the greatest peace which I want for you, which I want for everyone. Okay? A loving wife. And it all starts right here, the RAS. However, what if you're not happily married? What if this is what you say, I'm not happily married? If you're already in a marriage and you're not having great sex or you don't have that deep connection, I'm not telling you get divorced. No. I'm not telling you leave your woman. No. At the end of the day, once you rewire your own reticular activating system, you will become a different person. Once you remove the virus and you unblock all of those limiting beliefs, you will literally become a new man. Because with a new brain, you are a new person. And so, here's the solution. Neural mirroring. Once you, through neural mirroring, download the information from me, right? I'm downloading information into you. I'm removing those blocks from you. I'm downloading it to you. Once you do that, and you've rewired your brain, you will do neural mirroring to your wife, to your girlfriend, and rewire her brain. You're going to do it. She's not going to do it. You're going to do it. Look, my wife, she doesn't wear makeup. She doesn't drink. She doesn't smoke. And her nutrition is better than mine. But it wasn't like that. She was smoking a pack a day. She was an alcoholic. She was eating desserts all the time, bad junk food, ultra-processed food all the time, chips and cookies all the time, fast food all the time. But I rewired her reticular activating system. And she loves me for it. That health and that positive relationship that you have with your woman, it all starts from you understanding neuroscience, from you understanding your own brain. And that's what I'm here for, okay? So the last thing I want to say is it all starts here, right here. And more specifically, right here. Right here. In the reticular activating system. So that's what I wanted to tell you today, man. Once you rewire the reticular activating system, you're set. And that's what I want for you. That's what I want for you. Because at this point in my life, wherever I am, I want to bring to the world. I want to reach this. I want to reach all this knowledge to millions and millions of men in the world. So they can improve their life, they can rewire their reticular activating system, they can rewire their wives, and then they can rewire their family, and they can rewire the whole world. So that's what I want, man. Let's work together, be amazing, rewire your brain, spread the positive love. Thank you today for listening to me. I know it's been a long video. I love doing these masterclasses. Please put your comments below. Let me know how I can do better, how I can serve you better. What are your questions? What are your concerns? What was I not clear on? What can I teach you better? And I will keep striving, I will keep improving, and I will keep rewiring my brain my entire life. All right? This is Doc Farhan. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next masterclass.